Miami, Texas A&M in a game our Chip Patterson said earlier today could be a sneaky upset there for the Hurricanes. Then we get another rematch between Ole Miss and Tulane. And we wrap up the slate with the Cinderella story as James Madison looks to upset Oregon, kicking off at 7:30 Eastern. Of course, we say upset because when we look at the spread, obviously Oregon laying 20.5 in that one. Also a bigger number there in that Tulane-Ole Miss game. Ole Miss the favorite at -17.5. It gets a little tighter, though, as you move up this list. So, of course, we've got to break it down before we get to kickoff. So I've got all my friends joining me in studio. I've got Mackenzie Brooks, our sportsline betting and data analyst. And I've also got our Cover 3 podcast host, college football guru Chip Patterson, joining us in the wall. Kins, you're going to break down sort of the numbers side of this, who we believe is going to win from a numbers standpoint. Chip's going to let us know. Disagree. So let's get started with that first one, the rematch, Alabama versus Oklahoma. You see the score there, a 2-point difference here. Why do the numbers tell you that the Sooners will win this round? Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, this is the closest spread of the weekend, right? So it's going to come down to one or two key stats. So obviously there's things that Alabama is going to be better at, things Oklahoma is going to be better at. That's why you see such a close score. We have Alabama with the passing advantage. I think that's, to be given. This is a team that's done it through the air consistently all season, not exactly Oklahoma's game. So you're going to see a 40-plus passing yard advantage for Alabama there. Now, as far as the rushing yards, Alabama's had a hard time running all year. That really in their bit, on top of the fact that Oklahoma as a team allowing 2.8 yards per carry. So this is where you see Oklahoma having the advantage on the ground. Now, I will say in the model, having an advantage on the ground is going to prove more impactful than having an advantage in the air when you are seeing such a 50-50 split between these two stats. What makes this an Oklahoma win over an Alabama win comes down to the pressure that this Oklahoma team is going to give Ty Simpson. We watched Ty Simpson against Georgia in that SEC championship. What happens when he doesn't have a clean pocket? Not really going to be fabulous things for this team. So we do have Oklahoma essentially view round having an extra sack, which is putting them over the edge. But again, just in general, the pressure constantly all game long, they will put Ty Simpson under. That's what takes the passing yards and the rushing yards, and that becomes the edge with them. Is going to be the pressure and the sacks. We do know that this matchup, Chip, is always a fun one. We have seen the Sooners, though, be on the winning side of this matchup over the last couple of times. Do you agree with what Ken's and the numbers are telling you here when it comes to Alabama, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I do agree. I think it comes down to quarterback mobility. We talk about both of these quarterbacks potentially being under duress, and I agree with Mackenzie 100%. What we saw from Ty Simpson in the SEC championship game is no bueno when we think about how it's going to be against an Oklahoma team that is simply one of the best in the country in terms of applying pressure to the quarterback. Our Mason Thomas looks like he's going to be good to go. That is their best defensive lineman. That's a big boost for the Sooners. But then also John Mateer, because while I have a ton of criticism for the Oklahoma rushing attack in terms of the way that they play within the what that projection is telling you is the rushing yards that are expected here. And rushing yards for the team includes what John Mateer can do with his legs. So in a low-scoring game where both defenses are going to be trying to beat up on offensive lines on both sides that haven't been great, we've got a quarterback in Ty Simpson who I do not trust to be as mobile, who I do not trust to be able to take off and make the defense pay with his legs. John Mateer, on the other hand, at times this season has been the best rushing option for the Sooners. And then one last piece from the vibes department. I think Norman, Oklahoma is going to be electric. You go back to 2021 after the COVID season, this is one of the best winning percentages at home of anybody in college football. Oklahoma at home, I think, could end up being the deciding factor, where also we'll have 17-mile-an-hour winds with 20, 30-mile-an-hour gusts. Hoo-wee! We got football weather in this one.
I was going to say, that sounds like football weather.
Sounds like Carson Beck interceptions as well. That's what that smells.
Carson Beck, because that's where we're going next when it comes to Miami and Texas A&M. Chip, I'm curious what you have to say about this one because I was watching HQ earlier. But before we get there, when we look at the numbers, this one not quite as close, Mackenzie, but you do have Texas A&M beating Miami in this opening round.
Yeah, and we actually have a lot larger gap of a score than I think a lot of people are assuming, and odds makers as well. Now, Miami has been a team all year, hand up, that we haven't been high on, right? We're talking about a team that's coming from a conference where Duke was your conference winner. The model is going to account for your floors as much as it's going to account for your ceilings. So the losses they have had is very much clocked in the system, right? We're going to see that as much as we see your ceilings. So what you're seeing here is you're running a simulation 100 times. In 40% of them, you're seeing Marcel Reed get a rushing touchdown. In 35% of them, you're seeing him have an extra passing touchdown on Carson Beck. So when you round that together, that's really just becoming one more full touchdown over Beck, and it's basically the two of them head to head. How much more we like Marcel Reed that's making this an 8-point victory for the Aggies here, on top of the fact we could see Carson Beck with some more interceptions. Now, ironically, we do have a very similar split for the turnovers.
Okay.
But Carson Beck is a guy that's costing you touchdowns with those turnovers. It's always in a more costly situation than you're seeing the Marcel Reed one, so that's also what's playing into effect here and why we like Texas A&M to cover the spread.
And also playing at Kyle Field can be a challenge, Chip, but it is a challenge that you believe, because the Miami Hurricanes, what they have been through over the last couple of weeks, all the conversations, that extra motivation, potentially a chance for the Canes to upset the Aggies this weekend.
Yeah, I am a buyer of the narrative that there's going to be a new lease on life for Miami, that after being told that you were lesser than by college football at large, that now you've got an opportunity to go prove it on the field, which is how you got here, by winning on the field. But some of this is a fate of Texas A&M, because you want to talk conferences, Kens? Let's talk conferences. Let's talk Texas A&M's run defense, which ranks 13th out of 16 teams in the SEC and 58th nationally. And it's not just that, it's long runs, and that is where we see that among SEC teams, only Arkansas and Mississippi State gave up more runs of 10-plus yards than Texas A&M's defense. This Aggies defense is leaky, and I think that's where we're going to see Miami's offensive line open up holes. They rip off long runs, and it's not necessarily going to be about Carson Beck. It's going to be about creating some balance, keeping Texas A&M's defense off balance, having to deal with the kind of versatility there. And when I was listening to Mike Elko after that loss to Texas, he looked stunned. He looked like he had been shell-shocked, because he just saw that Texas A&M defense get carved up by Arch Manning and Texas and the Texas run game, and he was saying, we might be asking our guys to do too much. We're getting all of our alignment wrong. And that is not what I want going into the game, because Texas A&M was not tested. They had one of the SEC schedules of any of the teams that were contending for the SEC title. So I credit Mike Elko and Texas A&M for going 11-1, because other teams have taken similar talent and fallen short of expectations. You exceeded them. That's great. But I think that defense is a really, really big-time suspect aspect of their matchup here. I think Miami can take advantage.
I think if Miami pulls off the win this weekend, our office is going to be so chaotic.
It'll be fun for the vibes.
Yeah. In terms of the vibes meter, the vibes would be very high down here in South Florida, but I don't know if it would be in Texas A&M. To the big spread when it comes to this. The Cinderella team, James Madison. This is fun because James Madison's been a team that for the last couple of years has been in this conversation. They finally break through, Kens, but unfortunately, they got to take on the Oregon Ducks here. And when we look at the score, we look at all of the numbers, it is very much in favor of Oregon. No surprise here.
Right, and I said rushing yard advantage will always be more impactful than passing yard advantage. Not when the passing yard advantage is that of this caliber, right? Obviously, this is just completely in Oregon's favor here. As far as the rushing yards, right, we know JMU is supposed to be this awesome team on the ground, offensively, defensively. It's one of those where, like, I got to see it to believe it against a strong team, right? We're talking about Sun Belt numbers here. So we still have Oregon with the edge on the ground. A team that people forget, if they have to play the ground game, they're really good at that too, right? I know we see this program as a very flashy program and we want to think of the receivers, but if they have to ground and pound, this is something they are successful at too. So they have the passing yard advantage, they have the rushing yard advantage, and then it becomes the turnovers as well, right? This is a team that should be able to force more turnovers, and when you're having the turnover advantage, it is directly correlating to more points on the scoreboard. So when you're doing the math here, you're getting 3 more points from this turnover advantage, you're getting 2 more touchdowns from passing yards, and we do see them being way more effective with 2 more rushing touchdowns as well when it becomes to goal line efficiency.
Just feels like
remember when you play basketball against like an uncle and they would say like, I'm just going to go with one hand? This is what Oregon's been doing offensively for the last month, right? They've got no wide receivers, their pets' heads are falling off, and they're still winning games by double digits against top 40 teams like Iowa, USC, and Washington. So impressed with what they've been able to do. So yes, I do think that they can lean on that ground game, lean on their lines of scrimmage advantage, and be able to carry that to a handy win.
Chip, is there any world that you see James Madison keeping this competitive to the point where in the fourth quarter maybe we're talking about an upset?
No, I do not. I think we would talk about it in the second quarter, maybe. But I think that over the course of 4 quarters, physics ends up playing the biggest role more than anything else.
Okay, I feel like that's what everyone's argument is when it comes to that group of 5 team. But we'll see. We have seen crazy things happen.
Yes.
We will wait and see. The numbers say otherwise. Our last game, another rematch here. Some changes, though. You got like John Sumrall, who's balancing coaching two teams and putting together two programs. You've got another program with Pete Golden leading the way here. And yet, Ken's a similar result to what we saw at the beginning of the season when we've already seen this matchup played out.
I mean, so here's the thing. They're putting up 20 points. I feel like that's a pretty optimistic place to be. And this is an Ole Miss team that has allowed points all year. And now your defensive coordinator is your head coach. So 20 points would be awesome. Your issue is Ole Miss putting up 40, right? This is a team averaging 36 points per game on the year. Their team totals around that 36.5 number. So it's not crazy for us to think against a team like Tulane, they can put up a little bit more than that. You're looking at the passing yard advantage is just going to be absolutely lethal for this team. And now you even see Trinidad Chambliss, like against SEC play, he's not always putting up a million passing touchdowns. He actually rarely is, but the lesser competition outside of that conference, you will see him start to shine in that category. As far as, again, on the ground, rushing yard advantage for them as well against Tulane. We are seeing a slight sack advantage. What I will say for Tulane, if there's any chance of keeping this game close, it's erasing this. It's getting this category closer to 50-50. Maybe winning the turnover battle, maybe getting pressure to Chambliss is really the only way they can keep this game close, maybe cover a spread here. But again, just the offensive firepower. We have no reason to not believe in this team without, so we'll have to see it to believe it.
Chip, are you believing in Ole Miss post-Lane Kiffin, or are you leaning into the John Sumrall, who's coaching two different programs right now?
Hey, listen, there's a lot of chaos going on right here, but I do think that McKenzie was really onto something in terms of identifying the sacks, because Jake Retzlaff played horribly against Ole Miss first time out. It was only his fourth game with the Green Wave. He was 5 for 17 for 56 yards. Benched. But what has he done since then? He's gotten more comfortable in the offense, and I think his legs end up being a big way that they avoid the sacks and the negative plays that they had before. We saw him not run as much down the stretch, and then, apologies, Haley, he ran 15 times pretty effectively against North Texas in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. We've seen this in the playoff before. Sometimes the legs of the mobile quarterback, you just end up hammering it because it's the easy button to be able to solve problems. Jake Retzlaff's ability to run can negate sacks and help keep Tulane in this game.
It's okay, Chip. I didn't want to go to the CFP. Actually, I wanted to go to the New Mexico Bowl with North Texas.
Yes. Common misconception.
It's totally fine. I understand why you would think I would, but that's okay. That's your inside the lines when it comes to the college football playoff that North Texas is not playing in, but we gave you a really great look at what to expect in that opening round. More analysis from Chip Patterson and the crew by scanning that QR code on your screen. Get tapped into the Cover 3 podcast. And while you're at it, if you want more information when it comes to the numbers side of the games, make sure you check out Mackenzie Brooks and Inside the Lines. They give you the best projections at the best price for the best bet.